In the outer sector, Zemal disappeared from the proximity of the stadium, but he had heightened his senses to the maximum. Farnas was present there to watch over Helena himself, but he still wanted to do his duty as the head of security. So, Professor Arman, what should I teach today? Helena walked with a smile on her face. Arman felt pressured just by being near her. Each step she took pressured Arman as he stood before the woman who had mastered the black element to the highest level humanity had ever achieved. I welcome you, Lady Helena, Arman said as he bowed respectfully. She was the only person after Farnas that Arman would bow towards with respect. He was known for his talent for the black element, so much so that Farnas offered him to teach at the World Academy, but he knew that he still wasn't anything in front of Helena Raven. Don't feel too pressured by me, I am only doing a simple lecture, Helena spoke. She had only agreed to do a simple session with the students to help them understand the black element, but she would not teach them any of her techniques. She only agreed to do this because she wanted to check on Asher and Amelia. I was told my grandson is in this class, right? Helena asked as they moved to the area that was arranged for the class, Contemporary Romance. Yes, Asher Greville has performed exceptionally well among all the first years, Arman replied. Is he better than ever? Helena asked Arman. Yes, Arman replied, but his expression changed slightly when he heard the name Eva. It was a name that Arman didn't want to remember, but at the same time, he couldn't forget it either. Well, I will see that for myself, Helena said. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Asher and all the students in the class, who hardly came up to 20, were traveling to a particular stadium in the outer sector. Asher was lost in his thoughts, but they soon arrived near the entrance of the stadium. All the students entered the class as they saw the huge stadium. They were looking around and saw Professor Arman, who was standing with a woman with black hair, wearing a black overcoat with a special insignia on it. Asher could immediately recognize the woman, who looked like she was in her early 50s. The aura around her was so powerful that the students could feel it from that far. They all walked a bit as they saw Helena Raven looking towards them, but she was looking at Asher. She looked into his crimson-red eyes, but he seemed slightly different. She couldn't place her hand on it, but she felt that his vibe had changed greatly from what she had seen the last time she met him. Ads by Pub Future. She wanted to talk with Asher, but currently, she was here as a teacher for the students, so she decided to introduce herself first. I am Helena Raven. I am the family head of the Raven family and the guild master for the Moonlight Guild, she introduced herself, but everyone already knew about her. They were excited to meet one of the most influential people in the world. Even Licia was excited to meet Helena Raven, who she looked up to as her role model. I am here for the special lesson about the black element, but it is a normal lecture, so we will not go too deep into the topics, she said, but they were already happy they could interact with Helena. You can start, she said, looking at Arman. As you all know, the black element doesn't work like other elements, Arman began the lecture. Usually, we only see the black element as shadow magic, but it is more than that, Arman said. Arman started to explain various uses of the black element related to manipulating shadows and darkness. The black element had various uses, but most were related to shadows and darkness. Arman stopped as he had said enough for the introduction. And now Helena could take over. Before I give you my insights about the black element, you should experience the might of the black element yourself, Helena said as she snapped her fingers. Suddenly, darkness came from beneath her feet, enveloping the entire stadium and covering it in darkness. Then, with her other snap of fingers, the empty black sky turned into a night sky with a moon shining above them. Wow! The students looked around, shocked by Helena's magic. Even Arman was slightly surprised by Helena's control over the black element. He had only heard about her, but it was the first time Arman had seen her magic with his own eyes. This is only an illusion created with the black element, It was one of the major spells that messed with others' senses and created a fake environment like this one. And this is what we call shadow movement. Helena disappeared from her place. It was almost as if her body had merged with the shadows around her. But, then, she appeared at another place in a second, making the students look at her with surprise expressions. This will be the spell or technique every black element user needs to master first, Helena said. And the third topic we will speak about is fear, Helena said as she snapped her fingers again. At that moment, darkness wrapped around the students' eyes as they found themselves in front of the things that scared them the most. Helena looked at Asher, who had dodged her spell by backstepping from his place at the last moment. "It's no fun like this, boy," Helena said as Asher looked at his grandmother, who snapped her fingers and hands came out from the ground below him, locking him down in one place. Asher could not move anymore as he saw Helena coming towards him. Arman was busy manipulating his shadows as he watched over the students experiencing their fear, so he didn't mind Helena talking with Asher since they both were related. "Your eyes have changed," Helena said, coming closer to Asher as her black eyes stared at him. Just like Nathan had felt something different from Asher on the first day he met him, Helena could also feel it. They could see in his eyes that they didn't belong to a simple kid his age. Asher looked up with indifferent eyes. "Is there a need for this?" Asher asked as he looked down at his legs that were shackled in one place. "I'm just checking on you, don't worry. It will be over in a second," Helena said as her eyes turned pitch black, and she raised her hands to touch Asher's head. Asher didn't expect Helena to forcefully check his memories, but he couldn't stay still. However, he was not worried about the worst outcome anymore. Helena's magic took over Asher as he closed his eyes. 5 minutes ago, as Asher left the classroom, he thought of ways to escape this problem. Just then, he got a system notification. If host wants, the system can prevent any sort of mental infiltration if your intelligence stats are high enough. How much should be enough? Asher asked as he kept moving toward the direction of the stadium. If host reaches 180 points in intelligence, you can prevent any abilities that can affect your mind. Closing square bracket. 180, Asher thought in his mind. His current intelligence was 120, and he had exactly 80 attribute points, so he needed to invest 60 points in his intelligence. Do it. Asher had no choice but to do it. Despite not liking the idea of increasing his intelligence through the system, as he was unsure about the consequences, he had no choice. 60 AP used. Intelligence. 120 right pointing arrow 180. A stark pain in his mind was felt as he experienced a massive headache, but the pain soon subsided as his mind grew clearer. However, he still felt a bit off. He could feel that his urge for destruction, which was always present within him, had become stronger. Although he could still suppress it, his inner madness had grown. He wanted to feel it more clearly, but then he reached the stadium and saw Helena looking at him. Asher didn't know then, but his eyes had become much like those from his previous life. This was the reason Helena forcefully tried to read his memories. Helena touched Asher's head as she attempted to look into his memories but was blocked. Helena's pitch black eyes looked at Asher with confusion as she couldn't read his memories. She removed her hand and cancelled all her spells. Most of the students were still trembling in fear with the hallucinations they had gone through in a few seconds due to Helena's magic. Asher, finally able to move, opened his eyes and looked at Helena, who was still fine. So it didn't happen, Asher thought in his mind. Helena smiled as she watched Asher. There was only one case where she had failed to see the memories of a person with a lower rank than her. As Asher opened his eyes, he saw a new notification in front of him. Hidden quest completed. Objective: change Helena Raven's destiny. Rewards: 1500 fate points. Seeing this notification, Asher could guess that he had averted a certain incident that happened in his previous life. Asterisk 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 asterisk. In the gravel estate, Sylvie was looking at Asher, whose eyes were dead, lost of life, as he stared at her. Asher, tell me what happened inside, Sylvie asked with a stern look on her face. But Asher didn't reply. He wasn't ignoring Sylvie, but his mind was not present at the current moment. Sylvie, stop for now. I will talk with him. Arthur finally decided to step up. Sigh. Sylvie sighed. Although she wanted to believe Asher, the proof was in front of her, and seeing that Asher was not defending himself, she realized that the accusations were true. Mother is coming, so wait for now, she said as she turned and returned. Tell me, did you do it? Arthur asked again, but seeing the same dead look on Asher's face as he stared at him frustrated him. I asked something, damn it, Arthur shouted a bit, but Asher did not react. We will wait for your grandmother to arrive, Arthur spoke, seeing that he could not get his answers from him right now. After 2 hours, Helena arrived at the estate, and the look on her face could tell the situation around them was not good. Where is he? Helena asked Arthur before he could speak anything. There, Arthur guided Helena, who entered a room and looked at Asher. I thought this day would never come when I will check his memories again, Helena thought. Asher had become normal as she saw him, so she never checked his memories again. Maybe I could have stopped it at that time. She remembered the time she had lied to Sylvie, thinking Asher was only a bit different than others. Ads by Pub Future. Boy, I will check your memories, so don't struggle against it, Helena said as her eyes turned black. Asher didn't move, more like he didn't want to. Unlike what Arthur and Sylvie thought, Asher was not shocked due to the incident that happened. They were wrong. The time had finally come when his struggles with his inner madness had stopped. His inner madness was finally freed as Asher chose to embrace it. Helena touched Asher's head as she peeked into his memories, but she saw a single young man standing before her. In a pitch-black place, a young man with black hair and crimson-red eyes stood, looking at something beyond the eternal darkness. The space started to light up around the young man. What is this? Helena looked around, as she had never seen something like that. Suddenly, the young man turned to look at Helena, and it was Asher. Strange chains appeared around Asher, but a grey-colored energy erupted from Asher's hand. The chains were instantly destroyed. What are you doing? Helena asked Asher. The young man turned to look at her as he opened his mouth to say something, but Helena could not hear it. What? Helena asked as she was confused. But before she could do anything, Helena fell to her knees. A huge pressure dawned over her as she looked at Asher, but he had disappeared. The darkness around her was getting purged as a grey light took over. Helena felt like her head was about to burst. Suddenly, she felt the connection between her and Asher was cut off. Contemporary romance. Mom! Sylvie shouted as Helena barely opened her eyes, which were full of blood. She found that she was in Sylvie's arms as she looked at herself. She touched her face, which had a few wrinkles, and discovered that her eyes, nose, and ears were bleeding. Sylvie shouted, but Helena looked at Asher, lying near a wall, as Arthur checked on him. What happened? Helena asked weakly, but she could feel something was wrong with her. A few minutes earlier, Sylvie entered the room and saw her mother checking on Asher's memories. How much time has it been? Sylvie asked. She just started, Arthur replied, as both of them were waiting for Helena to finish and tell them what happened inside. They waited for a few seconds, but something strange started to happen. She is bleeding, Arthur said as his eyes went wide with shock. Everything was normal when suddenly, blood started coming out of her nose. Both of them were confused, but suddenly Helena's mana started to go rampant as her eyes started bleeding. Stop! Sylvie immediately dashed to remove Helena's hand from Asher's head. Asher was not powerful enough to face Helena's mana, which could hurt him badly. But before she reached it, Helena's mana pushed Asher into the wall. Her body was also pushed back, but Sylvie caught her, and Arthur dashed to save Asher, who had nearly crashed into the wall. Sylvie shook Helena, who opened her eyes barely, but the blood kept coming out of her eyes. "What happened?" she asked, but Sylvie herself didn't know anything. Sylvie's eyes went wide as she looked at Helena. "Mother, your mana," Sylvie couldn't even speak. "What?" Helena asked, but she felt even weaker. She checked her mana, but she was having a hard time gathering mana. "Your mana has dropped to S rank," Sylvie could not believe it. She could see how Helena's skin got paler and felt that her mana was dropping rapidly. Ah! Helena felt a sharp pain in her head as her consciousness slipped away. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Asher remembered that when she had checked his memories last time, it resulted in Helena becoming ill to the point she went into a coma. It was the start of a critical point in Asher's previous life, which turned him into the man he was today. "It seems I have a second person who has surpassed me in the affinity with the black element," Helena said with a smile. She had always believed that Asher was quite a talented person. However, she still doubted whether he was truly as powerful as Evergreville, the only person she had met that could surpass her affinity in the black element. Only one person she thought could surpass her in the black element, but seeing that Asher also had a similar talent, she was elated. Despite seeing that Asher had no emotions as a child, she found his talent very interesting. Moreover, he was the firstborn of her daughter, so Helena favored Asher from a young age, and she was very happy for him. But it was her misunderstanding. It was due to his high intelligence that Helena could not check his memories. Intelligence was a stat that increased the strength of his mental barriers, making him less prone to mental attacks. And Asher had enough intelligence stats to make Helena's bloodline ability useless. He still hadn't come to terms with increasing his intelligence in such a way, but seeing the effects now, he could deduce that the intelligence stat was not as simple as it sounded. He could feel his thought process had become clearer, but the feeling was different than when he got stats from his bloodline ability. "I was thinking of doing a normal lecture, but now I got this opportunity. Having a special class with the rank 1 student doesn't sound bad, does it?" Helena said, looking at Arman. "Oh." Arman got confused. "Yeah," Arman replied because he could not stop her from teaching anyone she wanted to. "Don't worry, it will be an hour session only, and I had already asked for some time to spend with my grandchildren," Helena replied. She had already asked for time to meet Asher and Amelia before returning. "But let's start by seeing what you specialize in," Helena said, looking at the class. Not all students could use all the abilities of the black element. Helena was sure that Asher had a similar specialty to her, shadow movement and control. Shifting her attention from Asher, Helena looked at the whole class. Of course, she would favor her grandson, but this visit was formal, so she didn't want to appear too partial. "As you all know, each person with black element affinity has a different specialty," Helena said. "But let's sit down first." Helena snapped her fingers, and various black-colored chairs appeared for each student to sit down. The students were surprised as they looked at the black-colored seats. They appeared hard and uncomfortable, but they didn't find them uncomfortable when they sat on them. Arman himself was looking forward to Helena's lecture as he looked up to her. "Do you know why we call this element by the term, black?" Helena asked. Asher was quiet, but the other students looked confused. Even Licia found it hard to answer correctly. "Let's go back to the basics," Helena said as she summoned a black orb. "Although only lightning and space elements are considered advanced elements, I consider black element a pseudo-advanced element," she said. "Although we named this element black, maybe just because of the color associated with most of the abilities derived from this element, that was not the only reason such a vague name was given," Helena said. As I said before, each person with an affinity for black element has a different specialty, Helena said. As for mine, as you can see, it is control over the shadows, or what we term darkness. The orb in her hand dissipated. But that's not the only specialty in black element, movement techniques, inducing emotions in enemies, and what I did earlier was illusion, Helena said. Although I can do all of them, you will never go beyond tier 3 outside of your specialty, she said. Now, coming back to my question, the term, black, was given due to the nature of all abilities of this element, regardless of your specialty, Helena explained. As you know, every element has a counter element to it that helps neutralize it, Helena said. But black element is the only element that is not affected by other elements and can be used against them, but the downside to using it is the extreme mana cost and needed control, she explained. Although all elements could be used against the black element, the abilities gained through black element were independent of other elements. But despite that, don't underestimate other elements, Helena said. I have seen many with advanced elements lose to those with just basic elements, Helena reminded them. After all, it was all about mastery of the element itself. Even a person with fire element affinity could beat someone with an advanced element because they could conjure higher tier spells. And black element is one of those elements that people never reached the realm to create tier 6 spells, Helena said. Tier 6 spells were equivalent to many special weapon techniques in this world. Even Silvus Grandis, who was given the title of the Archmage, was the only one who could achieve tier 6, but it was only in the basic elements. Helena had only a few tier 5 spells, which were quite mana consuming, considering the element she had mastered. So the first step for learning black element is finding your specialty, and it can only be done by trying out various spells, Helena said. So I think you will be able to find your specialty after learning more about spell weaving and black element after a few months, she said, and this was the only way to find your specialty. Helena looked at Arman, who nodded at her. This will be your first assignment. Find the books in the Great Library and try to learn all the tier 1 spells on your own, and if you cannot find your specialty, I will help you in the next class, Arman said. Helena started showing various tier 2 or 3 spells, nothing too much that could harm the students. After that, it was a long 2-hour lecture where the students listened to Helena, who talked about various theories that helped them as mages. This is all for today. I hope you all can find something meaningful in this session, Helena said. The students thanked Helena for the session. Meeting and learning from her was an excellent opportunity. You can stay behind for now, Helena said to Asher. Asher looked at Arman, who clicked on his phone and confirmed Helena's schedule here. I will wait outside the arena, Arman said as he looked at Helena. He knew that Helena would have wanted to teach Asher something, so he didn't want to stop her. Farnes, watching their interactions, didn't interfere because he could not tell Helena not to teach Asher about the black element. The World Academy was there only to teach the students, not restrict them. First, let's cut off the eyes on us, Helena snapped her fingers as a black barrier formed around them. Asher could easily see through the barrier, but from an outside perspective, someone couldn't hear or see them unless they broke it. Why are you trying to become a mage? Helena asked, knowing that Asher was brilliant at swordsmanship. She had seen his recorded footage of the representative tournament, so she could see how talented Asher was in swordsmanship. I am just trying it out, Asher replied as Helena stared at him, contemporary romance. At first, she wanted to tell Asher to change his course back to swords art, but due to her misunderstanding, she thought Asher's talent in black magic was higher than hers. It's a pity that you were born a swordsman just like Eva, or you might have surpassed me, she said. But let's not focus on what we can't control. You know about the Great Library, right? Helena asked. Yes, Asher replied. You will find many books, and knowing that you are rank 1, you can access all those books. I will teach you the spells you can practice now, but try to learn from them. Unfortunately, Helena's schedule was too busy to teach Asher personally about every single spell she mastered. Learning from books was a significant part of a mage's life, and she wanted Asher to experience it himself. Listening to Helena, Asher didn't tell her that his body could become a mage. You probably have the same specialty as me, so try to learn the Tier 2 spell, Shadow Control, for now, Helena said. Helena raised her hands as black shackles erupted from the ground. You have reached D rank, so the spell will be perfect for you, Helena told him. Asher looked around him and could feel Helena's perfect control over her spells. Give me your hand, Helena said as Asher took his right hand. This spell is something I created, and it will help you learn from spells and even create ones in the future, Helena said. I will weave the spells on your palm. Try remembering this feeling, Helena flared her mana slightly. Asher could feel the complex lines Helena's mana was drawing. His mind started to comprehend Helena's spell. He followed each step Helena did with his mana, replicating the spell. Remember to control your mana so that the spell doesn't break. Helena was slow in her demonstration. She estimated that it would take Asher at least days, even with his talent, to fully master the spell and hours to learn how to do it. I will give all the possible variations I have made for the spell, Helena said as she started displaying various spell structures she had created herself. In 40 minutes, she had shown more than 58 variations of the same spell and how she used them to improve her control. She removed her hand as she looked at Asher, who stood still, trying to move his mana in that order. Host has learned Shadow Control rank D. It was easier for Asher to follow through Helena's complex spell due to his high intelligence stat. Asher opened his eyes as he looked at the power behind this Tier 2 spell, comparable to many Tier 3 spells. Should I demonstrate the spell one more time? Helena asked. No, it's fine, Asher replied. Although Helena doubted Asher could learn this quickly, she had all the time in the future to teach Asher if he failed now. She had even made plans to train, especially when the first-year vacations would come. Helena didn't teach him much right now because she was still skeptical whether Asher would continue learning as a mage. I will go talk with the principal for a bit. Tell Amelia I will meet her before returning, Helena said as she removed the barrier. Helena went outside as she saw Arman, who was standing with Zemal. Lady Helena, the principal has invited you for tea, Arman politely said, and Helena nodded. All of them disappeared from their spots instantly, and she appeared right outside the faculty block. Zemal was being extra careful because they were in the inner sector. He and all of his team were focused on making sure no students came near Helena's vicinity, especially the ones from the elite families. We will take the special route, Arman said, looking at Zemal, who nodded back at him. Arman guided Helena to the special entry reserved for only some people whom Farnas allowed. It was a direct entry to the topmost floor of the faculty building, which was dedicated for Farnas himself. I will go back from here, Arman said as he opened the special lift covered with security runes. Helena stepped inside, and she went up to the topmost floor. The lift opened, revealing Demarcus, sitting with Farnas, waiting for Helena. Welcome, Lady Helena, Farnas stood up to greet Helena. Despite being the strongest human in the world, Farnas knew how much power Helena held. Everyone in the elite family knew about the amount of information the Raven family possessed. Most of the Raven family descendants had been adept in the black element, so this work had become their legacy. But the Raven family had always remained neutral, so no elite family wanted their existence to be gone. However, it was after Helena took over as the family head and changed the neutrality as she allowed Sylvie's marriage to Arthur. There was a lot of backlash, but nobody acted because it was too late. Black element was considered one of the hardest to master, but Helena had reached the realm between SS and SSS rank due to her sheer mastery of this element. What the Raven family lacked was the existence of an SSS rank hunter, but Helena was able to fill that spot partially. However, it was apparent that many people hated the alliance of the Greville and Raven families. I am happy you agreed to give this special lecture, Farnes said. Helena sat on the couch and picked up the tea before her. It was not much, I was rather free today, so the stars aligned perfectly, she replied as she stirred the tea. So, how are my grandchildren doing in the academy? She asked. Well, Asher Greville's talent has shocked many, Farnes said as he picked up the tea. What do you think about that, Vice Principal Zander? Farnes asked. I think his talent surpasses Ivar's by a lot, but he is different from Ivar, Zander replied honestly. Well, I think Ivar's humble nature was his only flaw, Farnes said while Helena listened. For them, Ivar was the only person in the Greville family who behaved differently from all of them. And his nature was what led to his demise, but nobody could deny that his talent surpassed everyone present. Ads by Pub Future. Well, there are Ivar's kids as well, Helena said. Farnes was observing Helena's words. I still don't think they can surpass Asher's talents, Zander replied. He had never seen anybody like Asher. It was obvious that he didn't know that apart from his immense talent, Asher already had the knowledge that others his age lacked. It's a pity that he is not into spear arts, Farnes spoke. Helena looked at Farnes. Are you still looking for your successor? Helena asked, and by the look on her face, it didn't seem like she knew anything regarding Farnes Calmott's secret. I am getting old, so it's time to think of the future, Farnes laughed a bit. I heard you were interested in Kevin Whiteheart. Helena asked as she wanted to know more about Farnes's next move. Well, he is still in consideration, but I will not give up my mantle this easily, Farnes laughed. If those kids want my legacy, they would need to prove that they are worth it, he said, but his senses focused on Helena's reaction. Does she really not know about it? Farnes started to doubt his conclusions. But apart from Helena, he didn't know how this information would get leaked. Well, I have an interesting suggestion, Helena said as she put down her tea. I know that there are dungeon rank restrictions on first-year students, Helena said. Why not remove it for Asher and make it similar to the second-year students? She suggested. It's a waste for him to be a D rank hunter and hunt in, at most, D rank dungeons, she said. Many of the students have reached A rank, and they will soon reach D rank too. From her words, it seemed that Asher had kept his word about the C rank dungeon to himself, or she would not have been talking like that. I think he should practice against D rank monsters, she said. I will think about it. Farnes neither agreed nor denied Helena's request. Their talk went on for a few more minutes, and most of their discussion was about the next High Council meeting that happened every 2 years. It was scheduled to occur after the end-term tournament of the World Academy. Asher, who went to the ranker's dorm, texted Amelia about Helena's visit. After that, he would no longer meet Helena anytime soon because being around her was too risky. This time, Helena was too focused on Asher's talent that she didn't notice the personality changes he was trying to suppress, contemporary romance. But he wanted to avoid such meetings after interacting with Nathan, who found out something was weird when he saw Asher. He entered his training room and looked at the new spell he had gained. Shadow Control. Rank D. Control the darkness to shape it into desired shapes. It was still rank D, and from Asher's understanding of the black element, it would take some time to increase its rank to make something out of it. Shadow Control, Asher muttered as his shadow stretched. A rope-like structure started forming from his shadow. Asher could feel that the mana consumption was high, but it was manageable due to the mana flow skill. Asher focused on controlling the rope as it shifted from side to side. It was a great skill for D-rank monsters, but against someone above that, it would be hard to bind someone or hurt them with the skill. So it was still not good enough, But he could see the potential in the spell, which could be honed even further. Asher received a notification. He touched his ID bracelet to see what it was. Less than space element theory has been cancelled for this week and will be replaced with runic theory class greater than. Asher looked at the notification, which worked in his favor, as he wanted to leave early next week. However, he had an idea that the class would be delayed. Not many people taught space element, and even in the World Academy, only a theory about it was discussed. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Helena was waiting for Amelia, who appeared together with Damien. She was sitting in a cafe in the outer sector. Although Xander offered her to sit on one of the topmost floors of the faculty council, she refused. "Grandma," Amelia said as she entered. Helena smiled while Damien waited outside, as he always avoided Helena. It was due to the small prank that Helena tried to do on him that made him avoid Helena. "My thoughts will remain with me." Damien would not take any chances by letting Helena read his memories. It was due to the joke that Amelia made once in the past when Helena was present. "Grandma, why don't you check if he really thinks of me as a friend?" Amelia asked Helena. "Should I?" Helena smiled, looking at Damien. "No," Damien shouted as he ran out of the room. It was a funny scene for the adults in the room, but Amelia didn't like it, and she ran after him to drag him back to her grandmother. But Damien went directly to Asher's room to hide, so she couldn't find Damien. Amelia had even forgotten the incident, as it was a few years ago. However, Damien still remembered, so he stood outside and waited for them to finish their conversation. Farnes, who was still observing Helena, was in doubt about the person behind Asher. Who is behind him? He questioned himself again. Talking with Helena made it clear that she didn't know about it. But, knowing Helena Raven's personality, she would have taken this chance to increase her influence through Farnes. But Farnes could never guess about Asher's regression. It was simply unfathomable for him. Because the one who gave the information to Asher was none other than the person Farnes had given his armor. And that person was meeting with Leonard Turvian right now. Kevin was walking towards a particular building in the third-year area. He stopped as he looked at the massive building and entered it. "You came here to meet Leon, right?" a third-year student asked, and Kevin nodded at him. "You can use the entrance from there." He pointed at the hallway. It was probably soon after the duel class in which Asher beat him that Leonard contacted him with an offer to meet him. This feels wrong, he thought while walking in the hallway. He knew that Leonard opposed Raylan, so he didn't want to appear friendly with him, but part of him still wanted to hear him out. Leonard had only messaged him once, which was about both of them not liking Asher. He offered Kevin to chat with him. When the area restrictions were removed and the first years were allowed to interact with each other, Kevin opened the door and saw Leonard, who was playing with a crystal-like thing in his hand, sitting on a couch. "Oh, welcome to Blood Faction. Why not sit down here?" Leonard offered. Kevin sat on the couch. "So, what did you want to talk about?" Kevin asked. "Well, slow down, my friend," Leonard chuckled a bit. "We are not exactly friends," Kevin reminded him. "Are you talking about me being against your sister?" Leonard asked with a curious look on his face. "Don't worry too much about it," Leonard said. "What do you mean by that?" Kevin frowned. "Relax, this is just an academy. I am doing all this because I was just bored," Leonard said as he stared at the crystal in his hand. "Bored?" Kevin asked. "Yeah. I just felt like the existence of the student council was too strict, so I wanted to stir things up as only 2 years are left, and we all will leave World Academy anyway," Leonard said. Kevin listened to him, and his impression of Leonard had been positive so far. Maybe I was wrong about him, a doubt appeared in his mind. "And you know your sister's fiancé is my best friend, so I know my limits. And wanting trouble from Reese is the last thing I will do," Leonard joked around. In a matter of seconds, Leonard had changed the vibes between him and Kevin, appearing like a typical third year in his mind. Ads by Pub Future. But still, why did you want to meet me? Kevin asked, but his tone had changed a bit. It's about Asher Greville, Leonard said as his face turned serious. I will be honest with you, being the son of the World Association chairman, I have a strong sense of justice, and the Grevilles are one of the few families that I dislike, Leonard spoke. Why them? Kevin asked as he wanted to appear neutral right now. He was not with his friends, so he didn't want to sound like he was against the Greville family. It was one thing he didn't get along with Asher, but he had already received his lecture from his father when the party incident reached the ear of the Whitehart family's head. Is it even a question? Look at their history. It's not too hard to judge how they have maintained their spot in the High Council, Leonard said. And looking at the current heir, do you really think it would get any better? Leonard asked. Kevin squinted as he did not realize what Leonard wanted to say. But he agreed that Asher was not a good choice as a heir candidate. I will not ask you to join the Blood faction, but after graduating, Reese and I will start a new company, Leonard spoke. Why don't you join us? He said. Kevin was surprised that Leonard openly invited him and Reese to join him. Although he would not join Leonard, seeing that his sister's fiancé was also present made it worth thinking about. But why me? You could have asked any other people from the elite families, Kevin asked. Leonard smirked internally, but his face didn't show it. You were the only one who stood against that guy. It shows that you are brave enough to stand against people like that, Leonard said. Most people in Blood faction would not go against him, and the reason is the amount of power the Greville family has right now, Leonard explained. I heard about the party incident that happened. Do you think any other family would have treated you guys like that? Leonard sighed. Remembering the incident, Kevin got a bit angry but controlled himself. I will give you enough time to think about it, but tell me your response before graduation, Leonard said. Leonard talked a bit more with Kevin and made him comfortable around him. I will think about this deal. Kevin stood up but didn't give a clear answer. Rapid Alpha, N newer, S ohm, but this much was enough for Leonard, who watched Kevin leave his room. As soon as Kevin left, a smirk appeared on Leonard's face. It seems that the Whitehart family didn't put much effort into teaching him enough about this stuff, Leonard thought of his conversation with Kevin. I was wondering if it would be too hard to use Elena Rothschild through him, Leonard laughed. He wondered how to use Rothschild against the Greville, as James Rothschild was a very crafty individual who would not move unless he was sure he would win. But every man has a weakness, Leonard muttered. Despite his crafty nature, his unconditional love for Elena Rothschild, his daughter, was pretty straightforward. And Leonard knew that Elena was a good friend of Kevin. Even if Kevin didn't agree to his plans and refused outright, he had other ways to make sure Elena Rothschild went against Asher Greville, but using Kevin was still a better option for him. Ring. Leonard's face turned serious as he picked up his phone, and a hologram appeared. Then, Leonard saw the familiar face in the hologram. Hello, Father, Leonard greeted the man. It was Osbert Tervian, the chairman of the World Association. Is everything going on smoothly inside World Academy? Osbert asked as he looked directly at Leonard. I encountered a problem with Asher Greville, but I will deal with him soon enough, Leonard replied. Good, don't rush into things. I expect a lot from you. The project will go into its final phases soon, Osbert reminded him. Use Alistair and Neville properly, even if you go a bit overboard. I will handle things from my side, Osbert said. Let's wait a bit, but I wanted to get some information about his movements, Leonard asked. Not right now, that stupid bastard attacked him, and now Greville and Raven are on high alert. Let things cool down a bit, Osbert replied. The auction will happen soon, and you will attend on my behalf, Osbert reminded him about a particular auction. Gather as many artifacts as you can, I heard that a few rare ones have been found but are still being analyzed by the experts from the Artisans Association, he said. When will it happen? Leonard asked. In a few months, you will receive the dates soon, Osbert said. The dates for the special gala were still not out. It was an event that required confirmation from all VIP guests, as it was a huge gathering of elite families and those related to the High Council. Many other influential families were also invited. However, most families attended because it was the most significant auction every 3 years, where the rarest artifacts would be presented. I will warn you again, don't let that old fox have his attention on you, Osbert said as he soon disconnected the call. You worry too much, father, Leonard said as he played with the crystal again. Soon, you will be under my feet, Leonard said as he remembered Ash's face. Asterisk 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 contemporary romance. 2 days later, Asher was heading to the runic theory class, the last class he would attend before he left the World Academy for a week. Helena had already returned the day she arrived, and the news about her arrival surprised most students. The most jealous ones were the senior year students studying Black Element. Asher entered the classroom, which had very few students, and most of them were shocked to see him join this class. Most of the kids from influential families avoided this class as it didn't help them much with their combat abilities. Why is he here? A student whispered to his friend. Shush, let's stay away from him, his friend stopped him. Although they were far from the seat Asher had chosen, they still didn't want to take the chance and create trouble with the most infamous first-year student of World Academy. Asher sat down, looking at his white desk filled with unique papers used for practicing runes. Even in his previous life, he hadn't joined a runic theory class. Instead, it was his connection with Professor Neiman, who taught runic theory and took an interest in his sword, that introduced him to runes. It was Neiman himself who discovered the finger ring armor, which was the key to unlocking the seals on his sword. But this time, Asher wanted to unlock his sword himself. He was sure he could unlock the sword's seals if he learned about runes theory. After a few seconds, an old man with a long beard entered the room. Oh, it seems there are a bit more people than last year, Neiman said aloud. The students in the class felt awkward and started rethinking their decisions about joining this class. If even the professor knew how boring the subject was, how would they handle it? Although everyone was allowed to take any number of subjects, most preferred not to go above 6 to 7 each year. Most students would rather spend their time learning about one subject rather than juggling multiple. Well, who do we have here? Neiman smiled as he looked at Asher. It's been years since anyone from the elite families attended my class, Neiman joked as he sat down. Despite teaching for years, Neiman had a very carefree outlook on his knowledge, which was one of the reasons he was not liked in the Artisans Association, full of people who loved and respected their craft. But despite his views, Neiman's talent in runic theory was comparable to the best in this world. Although, against the SSS rank hunter, who was the chairman of the Artisans Association, his talent paled in comparison. Well, I will be honest with you. Runic theory is a considerably hard subject with very limited uses, Neiman began. And even then, if you don't have the knack for it, you will most likely fail at it, he said. So, take your time in this first month to decide whether or not you want to continue. Neiman looked at every student present in the classroom. Ads by Pub Future. Although Neiman appeared carefree in nature, he only taught those who truly wanted to learn, and his behavior remained the same for all students, regardless of their status. Professors like him were almost non-existent at World Academy, contemporary romance. For today's class, let's not delve too deep but rather study the history of rune art, Neiman said. Knowledge about runes was not always present in the world. And before that time, nobody could even guess what the artifacts were capable of, Neiman explained. Makes me wonder if people accidentally died because they didn't know what the artifact could do, Neiman mumbled to himself. Ah, sorry? It's my bad habit, Neiman laughed it off, but the students were now seriously rethinking their decisions to join this class. It might not be correct and accurate, but I will tell you, guys, what I believe happened. The story starts hundreds of years ago and is related to the making of the High Council and the trials ground, Neiman began, telling the story. The current society, maintained by rules and laws, was not present in history. Back then, only the strong ruled over the people, and human casualties were quite high, Neiman said. The tale started with the birth of a certain man with amethyst-colored eyes. Despite his massive contribution to society, not much is known about him. His name is recorded as Razil Kyrios, and he is known as the creator of rune art. The entire class silently listened to Neiman's story. Before his birth, nobody even knew how to read runes. It was said that even in the era where the strong ruled, he rose up with immense talent and reached the realm of SSS rank. It was not hard to guess what he did from there. Razil opposed the rules of that era and created the High Council. Many people at that time tried to oppose him, but in the end, they couldn't do anything against him. It was said that he was the one who dictated that 15 people should be given rights to govern the world and the rules they made should be followed by others. The rules were made so that each human was considered important, and even those who were not as talented as others could live their lives peacefully. He even proposed that the number should increase when those worthy to be in the council appeared, but until today, only 21 seats are present in the High Council from the initial 15. The concept of elite families started from that time, but Razil himself was never part of the High Council. And it was said that Razil never had any descendants that shared his blood, and this is the reason there is no one with the surname Kyrios in the world. After the creation of the High Council, many people at that time got interested in Razil's knowledge, and after many discussions, he decided to teach the people at that time about rune arts, and that was the beginning of what we will learn today. P alpha ND alpha, no new, 1, SOM. According to many records, many people at that time said that Razil had reached a realm that we considered the peak of SSS rank. But even then, his powers remained a mystery to the world. His magic, which involved runes, had no counter at that time. Neiman. Even till today, there are theories that say Razil had managed to turn rune arts into something that was similar to elements, but it is just a myth. For several years, we have tried to do something similar, but at the end of the day, we reached a conclusion that runes only work with elements and are not an element in itself. Neiman denied the theory. Runes were used to create artificial artifacts and many other technologies, but their primary use was to bring and hold other elements in one place and use those elements to do something. This was why the theory about runes being an element was demolished. Asher knew about the records of the past because they were present with most of the elite families or families that have existed for a long time. They were still being kept as a legacy of sorts, but he had rarely heard the name Razil mentioned in those records. Although his name was associated with the creation of rune arts, the High Council, and a certain place, apart from them, anything else about him was missing. Most people even thought that Razil was not a person but a group of people who came together but didn't want their real identities to be exposed. Well, the story has many different versions, but there were 3 facts that remained the same in all of them, Neiman said. First, he was the one who taught people about the rune arts. Second, he was the one who created the High Council in that era. And even today, there are proofs inside the castle where the High Council meetings were held. Apart from all the seats, there is an empty seat that is carved with stone in the castle, and it is said that it was made for Razil if he ever wanted to join the High Council. And third and the most important one. The only reason that his name has not faded in the passage of time, Neiman said. He was the one who created the most coveted place in the world and the reason all elite families send their children to World Academy. Raziel was known as the creator of Trials Ground. Neiman's words confused some students. All of them vaguely knew about the Trials Ground as it was the reason that World Academy was created, but they couldn't fathom the thought of a human making a place like that. Raziel was known as the creator of Trials Ground. Neiman's words confused some students. It is said that after the creation of the High Council, Raziel started working on creating the place that became the most desired thing in the world. Many years later, he explained. He disappeared, saying that he wanted to create something special. Although people tried to follow him, all of them were rejected. But after Raziel's disappearance, people searched for him for years. Many believed that Raziel perished as there was no news about him for years. But their doubts turned into reality when they found the Trials Ground. His creation first attracted the then High Council, who discovered the existence of the Trials Ground. Neiman said. As you know, there are only a few floating islands that have existed throughout the history of mankind since the first dungeon breakout happened. It is believed that those pieces of land float because they were exposed to the space element of the highest tier during the first SSS rank dungeon breakouts that almost caused mankind's extinction. Neiman spoke. And the famous castle where the High Council was situated was one such island. There was a similar island above the skies of Somaria, and it was the last place where Raziel was spotted around. Those people then started searching that particular floating island and found what we now call the Trials Ground. And that floating island is the same one we are on currently. Neiman spoke. And this is the place where they found what is known as the epitome of runic creation. Neiman tapped on his wrist, and the picture of a temple-looking building appeared on a large hologram behind him. Trials Ground, the only place where a person could improve their innate talent, Neiman described. But some call it the eternal maze of illusions. A smile appeared on Neiman's face. Only people below the age of 20 could enter it, and those who did, suffered through unique trials that were made of illusions, Neiman said. Although we still don't know how, but every single person who entered the Trials Ground gained a better understanding of their own skills. It was almost like their innate talent itself had increased. Some mages found motivations to create spells, and some even created unique sword arts, Neiman said. Ads by Pub Future. The eyes of all the students lit up when they heard that their talent could increase further. This was the only reason everyone wanted to enter World Academy. And why every single person from an elite family attended the World Academy. Suddenly a student raised his hand. Yes, Neiman said. Professor, why don't we study the runes used to create it? He asked. It was a genuine doubt. But, if Trials Ground was such a coveted place, why had no one tried to study the runes used to create it? It's not that we didn't try, but we simply couldn't, Neiman replied. It is a creation made by runes that even we, to this day, cannot decipher at all. If we could study those runes, do you think the Artisans Association would have left such a place alone? Neiman laughed. If learning about runes from the Trials Ground was possible, then those people at the Artisans Association would have shed blood just to monopolize it. Whoever even tried to do it couldn't even understand the runes visible on the entrance of the Trials Ground, let alone the ones inside it, Neiman said. But why? The student asked. The answer is very simple. The runes Raziel, who we assume created the place, used the same runes that dungeons had, Neiman replied. Even to this day, rune masters can only decipher the intent behind the runes but not their workings, Neiman said. And we created the current society based on that very rune arts. Look around the World Academy, for example. You will find all kinds of runes being used to make sure everything runs smoothly, he said. But the ones on Trials Ground were even more complex. Not only could the runes on the entrance not be deciphered no matter who tried, but the ones inside were not even visible, he explained. The moment you enter Trials Ground, you are thrown towards various trials that judge you. Nobody knew why Razil created such a place and even more so how he was able to create it. Everyone who entered it never saw a single rune inside, and most rune masters believed that Razil used his special knowledge about runes that he didn't share with the world to hide those runes from sight, Neiman said. This is the reason why, despite being the creator of rune arts, Razil was never once praised by people who study rune arts. Call it ungrateful, but those who truly learned this beautiful subject were deeply hurt when they realized that Razil never shared the true rune arts with others. Although Neiman didn't have such strong hate towards Razil, it was not the same for others. Even Asher thought this was why Razil's name was ultimately removed from the records of the past. But many still are grateful that he at least showed the basics of rune arts, which had evolved quite a bit during those hundreds of years, Neiman said. Although many still claim that Trials Ground was not something built by Razil but was a natural occurrence just like a dungeon, Neiman spoke. There were various theories that people came up with regarding Razil, but nobody knew the correct answer. No proof clearly said that Razil created the Trials Ground, but knowing him and his greatness, people in the High Council named him as the creator of this mystical place. Well, you will know more about the Trials Ground when the time comes. Let's start with the class. Neiman stopped his story. He could speak on this topic for days, but he still needed to teach them for now. I wanted to know more. Many students had such thoughts. Going from a story about a mysterious person they didn't know much about to the rune arts was a letdown for them. But Asher was waiting for the class to start. He knew that rune arts was something only those with a talent for it could learn. And the most essential part of that talent was your comprehension rate, and Asher was confident about it. Let's start with the very basics of the rune arts, Neiman spoke as he stood up. Don't think of rune arts as a complex thing that we learn to create and identify artifacts or whatnot, Neiman said. Many students tried to think that rune arts was a very complex thing, which skewed their thinking. Treat it as a beautiful language that helps you create and enhance other things, Neiman said. We will learn the basic symbols for today, he said as a series of weird symbols popped up on his screen. Ra P D Alpha, N Nu S Om. The symbols you see in the first 4 rows represent the 4 basic elements: fire, water, wind, earth, and they are the easiest ones you can use with runes, Neiman said. Asher looked at the runes as he memorized the various runes shapes. All of you have special paper in front of you. Try to write these runes perfectly with the special pen beside you, Neiman instructed. But be careful. You will need to use your mana to create runes and try to infuse your intent together with your mana, Neiman said. Infusing your intent is the very first step you need to master if you want to become somewhat decent at rune arts, Neiman reminded them yet again how different rune arts were from spells. Unlike spell weaving, rune arts had no shortcuts or ways to simplify them. The more complex thing you wanted to do, the more complex the runes got. And even before that, imprinting your intent on mana was much different than imagining and constructing a spell. A rune master thought like a mage but used his intent like a swordsman, resulting in pure rune masters being weaker than both. Runes were not made for combat purposes, so most rune masters first focused on either the path of a mage or weapon user and then incorporated their knowledge into their creations with the help of runes. Even the Artisans Association's chairman was not a pure rune master, instead, he was one of the strongest weapon users in the world. Neiman signaled all of his students to start. Asher picked up his paper as he looked at the special quill Neiman had provided them. Imprinting his intent on his mana was one of the easiest things for Asher to do. His body might not be as strong as his previous one, but his mana control was similar to or even better than before. Let's start, Asher said to himself as he picked up the special quill to draw those runes. Shay drew the symbol that represented the fire element on the paper. He used the special quill and poured his mana as ink with a clear intent behind it. The symbols didn't work without mana and intent. If even one of them was absent, the runes became an ordinary design with no purpose, contemporary romance. The runes Neiman had given his class were the most basic ones, used to call an element or use the runes as the medium to utilize the element itself. Asher moved the quill around the paper, which could bear his mana without tearing it apart. It was a special paper used to write runes on. The other students struggled to draw the symbols perfectly, as even one wrong stroke would mess up the rune. Remember, if you mess up your runes, depending on the element, you might have a small blast happen in front of your face, Neiman casually spoke. His words pressured the students even more, as no one wanted the piece of paper to explode in their faces. Once you have written your rune and your intent was clear, the runes will finally appear on the paper, Neiman said. And if the final appearance is the same as the one shown here, it means you were correct in your approach, he explained. Asher moved the quill around as he made the first symbol. Knowing the rune was for the fire element, Asher's intent was clear. Flame. This was the word that was written on the hologram behind Neiman. Asher mixed the intent of a flame into his rune as he finished it, and an orange rune appeared on the paper. Your successful result will appear in a color of orange, Neiman spoke. These colors in runes occur due to the presence of the elements. Although there are times when these colors get mixed with each other due to the complexity of the runes, Neiman's explanation cleared some doubts for those who wanted to know the reason behind this. We have a successful result here, Neiman said as he looked at Asher's rune. I am surprised you perfectly performed this rune on your first try, Neiman said as the students turned to look at Asher. Now, let's use this rune. Neiman wasn't going to do it today, but seeing a successful try on the first day, he saw no reason not to do it. There are two ways to use the runes. First, by using your own words, and second, is using runes to make it an independent working rune, Neiman said. Independent runes is something you will learn in the future, so we will only do vocal runes for now, Neiman said. The intent of the rune was made by the word, flame. So use the same word to create the flame, Neiman said to Asher. Asher took the paper and placed it on another desk beside him. Ads by Pub Future. Flame, Asher said as he looked at the paper. Suddenly a small flame appeared on top of the paper. As you know, despite stacking multiple runes, the direct effect of the runes is not suited towards combat, Neiman said, and most students understood. A fireball was more powerful than the flame they saw just now, but runes didn't require mana after their creation. Those with low mana often tried their hands in rune arts, as it was one of the few subjects where a large amount of mana was unnecessary. This is your assignment for today. Memorize these symbols and try to make successful runes, Neiman said. Don't worry if you fail because you will learn what not to do each time you fail. And if you find this is not for you, you can inform my assistant that you want to change to new classes, Neiman said. Although most of the students were thinking of leaving this class, they wanted to at least try it. But still, some students could never learn this, no matter what, and Neiman allowed them to change their classes earlier than they usually could. And seeing that you are done with your first rune, why not try the rest of the runes? Neiman pointed at the 3 runes. Okay, Asher replied and picked up another sheet of paper. Runic Mastery unlocked, fundamental. A system notification popped up as Asher started working on a few other runes. He had grasped the fundamentals of the rune arts but was still far from perfecting it. His motives for learning rune arts were obvious. He just wanted to learn until he could try and unlock the seals on his sword now that he had finally gained fundamental mastery. Asher successfully created all 4 runes, surprising Neiman, who praised him. P Alpha ND Alpha, no new, 1, SOM, well, that's enough for today. I would recommend certain books you can read that can help you improve even further, Neiman concluded his class. Asher stood up first, as he needed to leave. I knew this boy was talented, Neiman told himself as he saw all the students exit the class. Asterisk 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 asterisk. After 2 hours, Asher was inside the faculty block and met Professor Elsa, who was in charge of his class. This time it was not an official vacation, so he needed to get confirmation from Elsa first to leave the World Academy. Asher used his year representative ring to gain access to Elsa's floor. Elsa was currently sitting in her office and reading the reports she had created for all the students. It's a pity that he is a swordsman, Elsa said to herself. She had never seen a first year be this good at reconstructing a spell into something else without changing the original foundation of the spell itself. Knock knock. Elsa looked up as she saw her assistant come into the room. What happened? Elsa asked as she put down her reports. Professor, Asher Greville wanted to meet with you, her assistant informed her. Let him in, Elsa said as she removed the reports from her table. What happened this time? Elsa said to herself. From the moment Asher had joined the World Academy, all sorts of things were happening. This year was the most chaotic one Elsa had witnessed in all her teaching experience at World Academy. Asher entered the room and looked at Elsa, who was looking at him. So what does our rank 1 want? Elsa asked. I wanted to apply for a week's leave, Asher said, but it made Elsa frown. This early? Elsa asked. Am I not allowed? Asher questioned her. No, you are allowed, but you might miss some of the classes, Elsa reminded him. I know, Asher replied. Well, you can avail up to 10 days each month, but you should try and return by the end of the week, Elsa told him. But these 10 days are only given to you because you were rank 1 in all 3 criteria, and it is something that the principal himself had allowed to happen, Elsa told Asher, who already knew about it. Helena had told him she had talked with Farnes regarding allowing him to take on a similar difficulty as the second-year students, so he could guess why Farnes would allow him some extra days. However, instead of allowing him to compete with second-year, Farnes compromised and gave him additional days if Asher needed to learn from Helena. Okay, Asher confirmed. Elsa took out her ID bracelet as she opened the student list and allowed Asher to leave the World Academy. I will remind you again that it is better if you focus on World Academy, Elsa gave one last piece of advice as Asher left. Asher just nodded and left the room. Exiting her room, Asher's eyes turned cold as he touched his ID bracelet. He sent the confirmation message to Tom to get Dane and Kai ready for their first mission, which he would take part in. He had gotten what he wanted from the auction, and that was his sword, so he could finally go on with his plans. Without knowing, Farnes had given more time to Asher instead of allowing him to compete with second-year students. It was his way of slowing Asher's growth while allowing Kevin to have a chance to grow and catch up to him. None of Farnes's oaths were broken, as it was an extra favor. Unfortunately, it would have been much better for Farnes if he had allowed Asher to grow stronger instead of letting him run free outside the World Academy. Hours before Asher met Elsa to take a leave from the World Academy, Tom was waiting for Dane and Kai to arrive to discuss their first mission with both of them. What do you think he did to get tied up like that? Dane spoke, coming inside the room. Shut up, Dane, Kai said, ignoring him. Tom turned around, sitting on his chair. Does he even sleep? Dane whispered to Kai, pointing at Tom. Kai looked at Dane with a weird expression on his face. He couldn't believe that Dane had forgotten Tom was the very guy they were going to kill. It wouldn't be hard to think that Tom was traumatized from his previous experience at the hotel and had trouble sleeping. Tom stretched his hands as his tired eyes looked at Dane and Kai. It was not that he had trouble sleeping, but he simply couldn't sleep as his work didn't allow him much rest. He had to keep track of multiple things, as Asher didn't want a variable to arise and ruin his planning. So, what's the mission? Dane asked as he looked at Tom. A simple heist, Tom replied. Heist. Kai found it odd that they were being told to go do a robbery when it was the very thing that got them caught in this situation. And what confused him even further was why someone so rich as Asher, the heir of the Greville family, would want to rob something. I know, that you guys aren't too good at robbery, but the boss will go with you guys, Tom said. He will? Curry questioned as he ignored Tom's previous remark. Asher was a D-rank hunter, and despite him being so talented, Curry didn't understand why he would want to come with them. Curry was sure he and Dane could escape most situations if multiple S-rank or higher ranks were not involved. Yeah, I'm not sure when, but he will return from the World Academy, Tom said. So, what is the thing we need to rob? Dane asked without thinking much about it. Unlike Curry, he didn't think much about why Asher wanted to do this. He only wanted to know where they needed to go. Likewise, unlike Curry's cautious nature, Dane was more careless but meshed well together. And this was one of the reasons Curry always stayed with Dane, no matter what they went through. Curry knew that sometimes Dane's simple thinking was the thing that helped them get out of many crises. Tom looked a bit troubled about how to tell them because he thought that this mission was absurd. Ads by Pub Future. Boss wants to rob an artifact that will appear at the Kalwas Gala's auction, Tom said as he looked at both Dane and Curry's eyes, going wide with shock. What the hell? Curry almost shouted, but he controlled his tone. Wait a minute. Dane raised his hands and took a deep breath. So, boss wants to rob an artifact? Dane asked, and Tom nodded. And that artifact is the one that will be sold at the Kalwas Gala? Dane asked again, and Tom nodded again. Sigh, if you wanted to kill us, why make it so complicated? Dane spoke as he looked at the building, but a sudden realization hit him. Wait, did you say boss is also coming on this mission? Dane spoke as he looked at Tom. Yeah, Tom replied. He didn't think that Dane and Curry's reactions were over the top because he reacted similarly when Asher told him to keep track of when a particular artifact would be transported. Don't worry too much about it, Tom said. Tell me this is a joke, right? Dane asked, but seeing Tom's face, he realized he was not joking. Kalwas Gala was the gathering of every family from the High Council and a few others who were influential enough to participate. It only happened once every 3 years and was one of the biggest events in high society. Not only was it the place where elite families gathered, but the world's biggest auction also happened at Kalwas Gala. But even S-rank hunters wouldn't be enough to steal from them. So what will 2 rank and a single D-rank hunter do against them? Curry asked. In his mind, stealing the artifact that would be delivered for Kalwas Gala's auction was impossible. At that auction, every elite family attended, and many SS-rank artifacts were sold. Stealing from such an event would make them the target of every single elite family. They simply couldn't understand why Asher, the Greville family's heir, would take such a risk. I will tell you the overall plan, but the final discussion will happen with the boss, Tom said as he opened a large map that showcased a particular path. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Asher had just left the World Academy and saw a car waiting for him. Nobody knew about his trip this time, and that would stay like that for at least a day. Until the next day, apart from Elsa, nobody would know that Asher was out of World Academy. He saw the car, and the one driving it was Kai, who was wearing a mask. Welcome, boss, Kai spoke as he looked at Asher. Asher sat in the car, and Kai drove it to the mansion that they were using. Emmy was absent here, as she was busy with other work and didn't even know about Asher's trip outside the World Academy. He had already planned all this to cover his tracks, even if someone wanted to know about his whereabouts. The car soon arrived at the mansion, and Kai opened the door for Asher. During the drive, Kai tried to gauge Asher's personality, but he got no answers despite the long drive. Asher showed no emotion, and a certain aura around him made Kai a bit cautious about him. He remembered what Dane had felt from Asher, so he was not underestimating him anymore, despite Asher being only a D-rank hunter. They entered the mansion and entered a room where Dane and Tom were waiting for them. Asher looked at all the items he had told them to gather beforehand for this mission. Is everything I asked for here? Asher asked as his crimson-red eyes looked at Tom. Yes, Tom replied quickly. Asher was looking at all the items before him when he noticed Dane fidgeting with his hands. You have something to say? Asher asked as he looked at Dane. Contemporary romance. Why yes, I'm not sure if our chances of success will be great, Dane replied. It was rare for a person like Dane to doubt his chances, but this heist was one of those things that was absolutely crazy. There was a huge chance they could be killed, and knowing that Asher was coming with them also made them think their chances of escaping were low. Asher looked at the three of them and knew why they would think doing all this was simply insane, but for Asher, it was nothing. He had done more crazy things that almost got him killed. Don't worry, there's a good chance no S-rank hunter will be available there, Asher replied. But this was not the only reason Dane and Kai hesitated about this mission. If they were going to do a heist like this, it was obvious that they would have to kill some people. And looking at Asher, who appeared to be a 17-year-old now, they knew he was just a young man from an elite family who probably hadn't killed a single human ever in his life. They knew nothing about Asher, so their worries were not unfounded. But for Asher, this was the first task they needed to do, which would make the world know about the existence of his shadow organization, Zephyr. It was a name that terrified many in his previous life and would not change even in this life. You used the passkey I gave you, right? Asher asked Tom, who nodded at him. I have access to the temporary vault and the path they will take to transport the artifacts, Tom replied. Follow the initial plan. Tom will be our guide inside that place, Asher said as he looked at Dane and Kai. Meet us around the coordinates I sent you, Asher told Tom. Both of you will follow me, Asher ordered Dane and Kai. They both shrugged off their worries, as they had already sealed their fates. Tom left the mansion in one of the cars, and Asher sat with Dane and Kai. Since nobody outside World Academy knew about Asher leaving the World Academy, they were going to a dungeon owned by the Abyss Guild. This was going to be his alibi for this trip. Boss, are you sure about this? Dane asked one more time while Kai drove the car. Kai looked at Dane, and it was strange for him to speak so politely to someone, but remembering that his instincts were so sharp, he knew Asher was not a simple person. Asher, who had been silent the whole ride, looked up towards Dane, who turned his head from the front seat. His crimson-red eyes looked at Dane. Do as I say, Asher said. Seeing that Asher would not change his mind, Dane gave up on convincing him. He just decided not to care anymore. Unlike Kai, who planned everything out, Dane had a tendency to go a bit extra in his missions when he was working with Spider. This was one of the reasons nobody other than Kai liked to work with him. They soon arrived at one of the dungeons that was under Abyss Guild, and Asher was going to create his alibi there. Although it was not necessary since nobody would be able to trace it back to him, he didn't want any loose ends. Both of you know the plan, right? Asher asked as he stretched his neck. Yes, Kai replied. Asher got out of the car as Dane and Kai started following him. Outside the dungeon. Listen, I want both of your teams to clear this dungeon. One of the guys standing outside the lobby spoke to the two men. But both of them were interrupted. Manager, we have an issue, one of the hunters there spoke. What is it? The manager asked with a frown. It will be better if you come with me, the guy said as he looked around. The manager was confused but decided to go with the guy since he knew him personally. The manager entered the lobby and saw a young man standing, and behind him were two guys. It was not hard for him to guess the young man's identity. Young master, did you need anything? The manager asked with a smile. His previous confident demeanor was gone as he stood in front of the heir of the family that ran the guild he was working for. It was not hard to say that Asher would become the Guild Master of Abyss Guild after seeing his performance in the representative tournament. I want to practice in the dungeon, Asher said, contemporary romance. Oh, you can, we can send our best teams with you, the manager replied. No, we will hunt alone. No need for your teams, and I don't want anyone to enter the dungeon until we are done, Asher said. Ads by Pub Future. Asher had become AD rank hunter, so his presence was much stronger than before, and even the manager could feel it. But going with just 2 is a bit, the manager said. The dungeon was AC rank dungeon, so it would make sense why he was worried. Although he could sense that Asher was AD rank hunter, he was unsure about the other 2 hiding their mana. Hearing him, Dane and Kai flared their mana to show their ranks. Oh, if they are a rank, then it is fine, the manager replied as he noticed their ranks. A Alpha GLESN knew he was a B rank hunter, so it was not hard for him to guess what rank Dane and Kai were. We will spend a week inside, but don't let the information about me being here spread, Asher said. Don't worry, I will do my best to ensure nothing happens, the manager confidently replied. Clear the area around the dungeon, Asher said, and the manager left the room immediately to ensure Asher could enter the dungeon. A few minutes later, Asher was standing before the Blue Gate dungeon as he was about to enter when Dane spoke up. Young Master, I received the confirmation about that matter, Dane said. The manager looked at Dane but didn't think too much about their conversation. He will be enough for this dungeon. You can go back, Asher said as he looked at Dane. The manager watched Asher and Kai enter the dungeon. Are these the mana detectors? Dane asked the manager. Yeah, these are some of our finest ones, the manager replied. Will they be fine if I go through them while using my mana? Dane asked. They can handle up to an A rank hunter's mana, but the reading might not be accurate, the manager replied. Good. Make sure that no one enters the dungeon while young master is inside, Dane said with a serious look on his face. Yes, of course, the manager replied confidently. Seeing his reply, Dane flared his mana. Beep. A sound of a beep was heard. Okay. I have checked them, Dane replied as he looked at the manager. Told you, the manager replied with a smile. Dane quickly went outside, took the car, and drove a bit far from the dungeon. Finally, arriving at a place where no one could be seen, he stopped the car and stepped out of it. Your driving is awful, a voice came from his right. Dane looked at Kai and Asher, who appeared in front of him. Well, my acting was great, though, Dane replied. The moment Asher and Kai entered the dungeon, Kai used his special ability to make them invisible, but they still had the issue of the mana reading devices outside the dungeon gate. To counter that, Dane used his mana to mess with the reading for a second, and it was enough for Kai and Asher to leave the premises. Wear the items in your spatial ring, Asher said as he took out a mask and a ring from his spatial ring. You have the coordinates, right? Asher asked Kai as he wore his mask. Yes, Kai replied, seeing a special nano armor covering Asher's body. This special nano armor was something only a rank hunters of major guilds used. Kai took out his mask and armor, which differed from the one Asher used. Kai and Dane were using the nano armor built for S-rank hunters, which was very expensive. Both of them could handle the mana consumption of this armor, but that was not the case with Asher. Although he wore it, he would need to use a lot of his mana, but he was not worried about it. They sat in the car after they wore the masks. The place they were going was not something that was accessible to a lot of people. Although Kalwa's Gala happened on different continents every time, the vaults they were going for were not in Somaria. And for reaching there, they needed to leave Somaria. But the problem was that all the continent-wide teleportation gates were strictly monitored, and if they traveled through them, their records would be stored. But there were other ways to travel between continents, although most took time. The place they were going to was a special series of portals that the black market owned and used, and only those with shadow cards could use them. Asher also had one, which he received for making a deal with pure mana crystals. In the middle of a forest, Tom was waiting in a vast camp full of shady people. He was also wearing a mask to hide his identity. Interestingly, people around him wore similar masks. In fact, he hadn't seen a single person not wearing a mask to cover their identity. When will they arrive? Tom muttered to himself, growing more impatient. The atmosphere around him was far from comforting. Asher had told him to wait there, but now that he was in the middle of it, he wanted to leave already. His worry was understandable. A place used for illegal travel between continents was not where you'd expect to find pleasant people. Despite this, nobody seemed to bother him, and for that, he was thankful. Although he was the only unawakened person there, unspoken rules governed the area. Most of the people there were involved with illegal organizations, and none of them wanted to cause trouble with others. Even if the person they argued with was weak, there was no way of knowing who was behind the trade. They knew they had to follow these rules to ensure this place ran smoothly. Tom didn't know about this because he hadn't found any information on the subject. Suddenly, his thoughts were interrupted by a message from Kai telling him they had arrived. With a sense of relief and excitement, he quickly stood up.